So, hello and welcome to our podcast, The Ups and Downs of a Small Business Owner, where we hope to show you exactly what it's like to grow a business. Today, I'm here with Kaival Patel, owner and director of Khana Health Group, which is most of the dental practices in Milton Keynes and Bedford.
Hi, David. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So, okay, what is Khana Health Group?
Yes, at Khana Health Group, at the moment, we are a group of dental practices, as you mentioned, in and around Milton Keynes and Bedford. We've got a really strong set of core beliefs within that sort of, within the health group itself, ranging from patient experience to positivity, empowerment, innovation. But actually, it's a group that's been founded by my wife Sreena and I. We bought our first practice in 2015, and it's sort of steadily grown since then. We've also got a teaching academy based in Milton Keynes as well, which we're really proud of, with a postgraduate diploma in aesthetic and restorative dentistry. But yeah, that's us in a nutshell at the moment.
Okay, so there's a lot going on. We'll kind of come to the end. We'll go back to your journey to the beginning then.
Sure.
Where do we start? Where did you decide to go into dentistry?
Yeah, so throughout my childhood, I always just had this fascination with teeth and wanting to be a dentist. Said nobody ever. Yeah, I loved sports as a kid. I was, in school in Milton Keynes. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with life, and I my childhood was very much, it's in a loving household. My parents were immigrants. They came from Uganda when Idi Amin kicked everybody out. They built their lives for themselves here. We never really had, we weren't wealthy, but I watched them work every hour that God sent them. We had newsagents and post offices. First they had it in London, then Northampton, then Milton Keynes. And we just saw hard work. They worked 7 days a week, literally 7 days a week. I was lucky. We had my grandma that lived with us, who looked after my sister and I throughout it. And my parents' core, it felt like their core reason for being at times was to get my sister and I educated. They sort of pushed us towards that. They invested everything they had in really getting us educated. And I think they never, I'm a tourist, so I'm really stubborn, and they never forced me or said this is what you have to do. But they're clever. They put me in situations where we could see that stability with medicine or dentistry and these sort of things. My sister ended up being a pharmacist, but then she actually hated it and became an interior designer. But yeah, they put us in these sort of positions. And I think the key aim was to have some stability in a job. It's something that they didn't really necessarily have, and give us those opportunities. So yeah, ended up doing dentistry at the University of Manchester. Loved Manchester, loved that sort of period of my life as well. 5 years there, but I always knew that I wanted to come back home. So when I finished the course there, we have like a 5 years of the course, and then there's a training year. And that training year, I was fortunate to get something in Northampton. Ended up then had my one and only real job interview as from that training year to become an associate dentist at a place in Wellingborough. Learned a lot there, and then met Sreena. Well, actually, we studied together, but we didn't date or anything throughout university. It was all afterwards, and then we, as we were sort of getting married, we were looking at buying our first dental practice. It didn't go to plan. We were buying a practice where actually the person who was selling the practice was setting up another practice locally, and taking the patients over there. So this was all due to complete 2 weeks before our wedding. So and it was 2 weeks before that we realized that this was all happening. So we ended up not going through that. We learned loads of lessons.
If I can just
Yeah,
rewind
of
that a
course.
little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
so you're working as a dentist.
Yes.
Shreena's working as a dentist.
Yeah.
At what point do you decide now is the time to buy a practice?
Yeah, so I think this is true even now. I always have an itch. I want to do something. I've always wanted to do something. It seemed like it was very much the norm in those days to work as an associate dentist for a while. In the past, it used to be you'd buy into the practice that you worked as an associate. Didn't have that sort of opportunity where I worked, and then we moved forward, and it was really when Shrina and I were getting married. It was like the done thing to do. That you're two dentists, you're married. Why don't you go and buy a practice? Now, when I tell people about it now, and I give advice for younger dentists going through, that is really not the right reason to own a business or start owning a business. But we just sort of fell into it.
Right.
Yeah.
So were you quit? I guess it's slightly different. You weren't really quitting your jobs to do it, so it was like almost carrying on. So you've not got the oh my god, we've got no money, we're starting up from scratch.
Yeah.
It's just we're going to take over. So if we go right back to the first one that you've purchased, because I imagine it's very different now.
Yeah.
What were you looking out for? What was it that you thought you wanted?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Shrina and I both invested in our postgraduate education. We're believers in that now for our team, but we were really big believers with it then. So I did a master's in dental implants. Shrina did a master's in root canals, endodontics. And we wanted to have a practice where we could implement those things. So it's actually ideally places that didn't really do those specialities. They didn't do that, higher end work and these sort of things, but had the space to accommodate us, had the patient base to accommodate us as well. And and we just wanted to bring those into wherever we bought, basically. So as with, many younger dentists that are looking into practice acquisitions or ownership, they might buy a small place and then just grow into it, build up their list themselves doing general dentistry. Whereas actually for me, I wanted a patient base that I could get referrals in from in-house or externally so that I can do this higher end work that I've just studied, and as a postgraduate education for. So Shrina, to be honest with you, she never had those same aspirations. She just wanted to work. She wanted to have, a steady income, a steady living. That's where we're very different, But at the same point, I think as our journey has grown, she's grown that sort of flair for it all as well. And we have a nice sort of system between us where, she stops us going broke. Whereas I'm the dreamer, and I'm the person that will have lots of different ideas and suggestions. But she's never somebody that stops me. She might sense check me, and just understand why we're trying to do this next thing, or why what's the idea behind this, why are we looking to do it. But yeah, never stops me. Actually fully supports me in terms of that.
On that then, I'm sure we've all made mistakes and we've all done the wrong thing.
Yeah.
If you have a disagreement, what actually comes with that? Like, how do you resolve that? Obviously being a couple as well as being business owners, how do you overcome that?
We talk. I think sometimes it's a sad fact in life so we've got three beautiful children. We either talk about the children or we talk about business, and then we have our things to tune out, watching TV together, and we like the same sort of shows and these sort of things to tune out. But actually, we have dedicated meetings just about the business with one another. So there's that protected time to go through things that maybe our managers are asking us, things that we have to make decisions on. And that'll be just us two in a room going through certain things. And we often have disagreements, but we'll find a compromise. Or, if it tends to be based on growth, then I'll win it. And if it tends to be based on, the finance side of it, or the operation side of it, then, I have to trust in Sreena in that, this is what she's going to be the one implementing these things. She's going to be the one delivering it to the teams and so on. So if she doesn't believe in it, it's not going to go through. Same with the manager delivering to their team. If they don't believe in whatever we're suggesting, then there's no hope for the team to believe it because they don't believe in it. So we have that. And then we have an amazing business coach, Debbie Lewis, who's been on the podcast, I think, before. And she doubles up as the business coach and marriage counselor for us. And she'll give us a good dose of, tough love whenever we need to. She's probably closer to me in her thought process with lots of things, but then she'll sense check things with Sreena, and actually she'll often fight Sreena's case as well. So I think it's really important sometimes to have that external person looking in, and just giving you a different type of opinion and looking at things from different angles. Because actually, when you are so consumed with it, sometimes you can't see what you can't see.
Yeah, exactly that. Like we often say that with the numbers,
Yeah.
you can portray different things with the numbers, which is great, but it's trying to work out what's going to happen in the future. And yeah, great, there's cash in the bank today, but that doesn't mean that it's just going to be there next month, the following month, or anything like that. Or it could be that there's finance agreements or anything going on that doesn't show on a profit and loss, for example.
Yes.
So you also mentioned kind of managers, and I think this is probably one of the toughest things for all businesses is staff. But how do you deal with and keep the managers on board and keep them motivated in achieving whatever it is that your goal is?
Yeah. Again, great question. I think in terms of that, it starts with the hiring process. So actually, when we're hiring, we're always hiring on attitude. We and then we do feel that one of our core strengths is development. So we feel like we can teach all the skills, but actually, if the attitude is there from the start, then everything else is teachable. So I think that's the first part. The second part is having good systems and processes, which is a blanket term that gets thrown out all the time. And actually, a lot of the systems and processes that we have is through making a ton of mistakes, from the start, realizing what's gone wrong, what's gone well, and then just refining it over the years and having it written down. Because actually, so much of this happens. It happens in your head. But then actually, once you've written it down, it's something, and actually trying to have somebody follow it. Because again, our heads are crazy, and if people can't follow what you're trying to implement and deliver, then there's no point in that system and process. So writing it down, having systems and processes, and then having regular touch points with them, going through it. We never really had the Khana Health Group, so we had our first practice, Oxford House. We had our second practice a couple of years later, which was Wilson House. And I worked in one, Sreena worked in the other, and that was going to be life. And then COVID hit. I had this eye condition from my sort of younger days. And during COVID, it really got a lot worse, and I couldn't see very well. And it was probably stress induced. Nobody knew at that point what was going to happen. And it was actually at that point where we were previously on this entrepreneur program with NatWest, and that opened our eyes to business. Because actually having a bunch of dentists in a room, generally bad idea, but you only again see things from a dental lens who have not been taught business whatsoever. And then being on a program where there's loads of enthusiasm, positivity, it's infectious, and you learn actually all businesses are very similar, whatever field it is. And actually we both love the business side of it. So it was at that point where I thought, well, I might have to stop clinical dentistry. I don't want it to be on somebody else's terms or my health's terms. I want it to be on my terms. So we decided that at that point that actually we need to grow the group, and we need to have a brand, and we need to have an identity. And actually that's when Khana Health Group came out. So, Khana is first two letters of my name and last two letters of Sreena's name. So it's not that some ingenious conception with it. And actually, we couldn't even see that name. It was somebody else that pointed out to us, to actually to develop it. And then we just needed a North Star. What puts it all together? What makes it a bit different? And the key part of that was positivity and respect. We always had that. We wanted that for our team. We do lots of initiatives for that, which I'm sure we'll probably discuss later on. But that was actually what created the group. And then it was having that North Star of positivity and respect. Once you have that and you believe in it and you really, really believe in it, then whoever you speak to, managers, team members, whoever else, they can't help but believe in it. And I think the final part of it is if you do find people that are not aligned with you, and this is probably the mistakes we made from the start, where we used to try and migrate the right members for your team. And I think that's what we're a lot quicker with now. If they're not right for us and not right for the Khana Health Group, then they're not with us anymore. And you have to make those tough calls sometimes.
And move quickly with that.
And move quickly with it, yeah.
So I guess you mentioned Debbie Lewis as well, and I think actually we were on the same NatWest course.
Yeah.
Ironically, although I don't think we actually ever met through that.
No, we didn't know. Yeah.
But how important have these other people been on your journey, and have they changed the way your journey has gone?
Yes, I think that I'd love to say it was all me and Sreena, but no chance was it all me and Sreena. We had really brilliant, I guess, mentors at different stages of our career, of our life. I think early part was definitely both of our parents. My parents, the sort of eternal optimists, and you could do anything you want, son. You just do it. It's fine. If it fails, it fails. You've tried. Shreena's parents, her dad especially, is probably a bit more pragmatic with things, and he's like, well, why are you doing it? What's going to happen? Are you sure you want to do it? So you have to really truly believe in what you're doing to make it sort of work. And I think that's a wonderful dynamic there. Then it moved into the clinical side of things. And actually, where I worked as an associate in Wellingborough, there's a chap called Resh Dew, who was probably my very first sort of proper mentor. And I just loved everything he did within that practice, which is again a bit different to everywhere else, where he combined the team. He brought lecturers in to develop the team. Whereas normally, I mean, most associate dentists are self-employed. So you're on your own, mate. You go and figure out what you want to do with your life and you try and progress yourself. Whereas he brought, lecturers in, he brought different speakers in, he developed the team, and that was a big, big eye-opening moment, which is what I wanted to emulate, I guess, as we grew, and we've sort of done that with the academy and everything else. And then we have, people like Debbie, Debbie as a mentor now, where it's the business side of it now. It's not less the clinical side for us, and actually we need somebody to help us. And normally, and the best business coaches are always, you yourself know the answer. You need somebody to bring it out of you, or make you listen to yourself to do it, or listen to each other. Sometimes it's the only time Sreena and I are really talking about certain aspects of the business. And it's forced out because sometimes uncomfortable conversations end up getting put under the carpet a little bit. And the business coach, and Debbie's amazing at it, is, well, why do you think that is? What are you doing? And just bringing it out of you. So I think definitely different sort of mentors in different stages of life.
And she almost holds you accountable, and she's kind of, this is what we said we'd do. Where are we? Why aren't we doing it? On that, you kind of mentioned you're less on the clinical side and more on the business side.
Yeah.
So would you say you're almost no longer like a dentist? You're more of a business owner. And is that extremely different? Like, how do you separate yourself from being the dentist that just jumps back on the tools?
Yeah. So actually, I've not done clinical dentistry now in 2 years. So not touched a drill. I wouldn't trust me to do your filling, David. But, and it was a massive identity crisis I had at that point, because that's what I was, that when I'd go to, if somebody was introducing me, it was Kaival the dentist here. And now it was a business owner. And even that felt a bit dirty, like it felt wrong for what I've studied for, what I've done, even my parents really struggled to tell other people, that he's not really a dentist, we're not really doing dentistry anymore. And that was really tough, because I'd lost that identity side of things. Normally at barbecues and things like that, I'd have a queue of people there, with having consultations with family members and these sort of things. Whereas it wasn't the case anymore. And even with our existing teams, that was really difficult. So the first few practices we had, because we were there all the time doing the clinical side of things, and actually stepping away from that and just focusing on the business side, everybody has to try and get used to this different dynamic, which is unusual. Normally dental world is, you have a principal dentist, they're focused in that practice, they're working in that practice, and they're also trying to run the business side of it. But inevitably, that's where things go wrong, because, it's such a refined and detailed out. You're looking at the small space all day, every day. You've got lots of problems that you're trying to face. You're trying to problem solve all these things. You want to focus on that mouth and that person attached to the mouth, whatever's going on with it. Whereas the business side is different. You want to focus on the team and the patient journey and all these things that you want to have it so you have a business that's thriving, and you have to have time for both of those things. So actually the biggest thing for us was having that time out of the business, clinically working and being able to focus on the business side of it itself. You hear it all the time, don't be in the business and focus on the business. But it was really difficult because we're not taught it. Dental school is purely clinical, even now, and that's one thing I'd like to sort of be able to progress later on in life is being able to help the business side of dentistry for people that are aspiring to do it.
That's pretty cool. I guess we'll come back to that later. When you've purchased your first practice, you've then got the second one, which was fairly quick afterwards.
About 2 years after, yeah.
And then you decide you're going to expand it. Have you got a carbon copy? This is what we do. We just roll that out into all the practices. It works perfectly fine, and we can just keep expanding at that point.
Sort of. So I think what we realized is, again, we're massive on that patient experience side of it. And we want, my interview actually, and I'll share it with you with lots of people, is, especially people on front of house or interacting with patients, it's close your eyes and tell me, think about the best holiday you've ever been to, best hotel you've ever been to, best restaurant you've ever been to. And inevitably, unless they've not been to any of these things, inevitably you'll see a little smile, come up in the corners of their mouth. I said, see that feeling there? That's what I want in our dental practices. I want our patients to feel that. And I know it's a dental practice, and it's not the place that people necessarily want to come. Lots of people do for lots of cosmetic reasons, but the connotation sometimes with dentistry is scary, and I'm nervous, and I've had a really bad experience as a kid. I want to change that, so that feeling of, I call it a virtual hug to the team, that we need to be able to deliver a virtual hug. And that part is very difficult to replicate, especially when you acquire existing practices, which is all we've done.
Yeah.
So you can set something up from scratch, and I think sometimes easier to have that, that to build the team that are on board with that. But when you acquire existing practices, the benefit is there's normally some sort of cash flow going on, from day one. But the downside is you have to teach, or you have to have the team on board with that way of doing things, which is not normally, again, the norm in dental practices. A lot of catching up with that sort of sentiment, but it's not normally the way people go about it. So that part we can't necessarily write down and transfer to a new place. We have to spend the time with the team. We have to get the right team members on board with that part of it. Whereas the simple systems and processes of how you turn the computer on, maybe how you're answering the phones, and what you do from a dental chair in terms of the equipment and maintenance and these sort of things. Yeah, process and manual. You can literally pop that over to the next one. How we do the marketing side of things, those things we've learned along the way, and then we'll try and sort of drag and drop into a new practice. But a big thing for us is know a little bit about the practice or the dentist that you're going to see before you walk, step foot into the actual place, because you build that rapport, you build that person, that relationship with somebody beforehand, because that's what it is. It's a relationship game, really. So yeah, like I said, yes and no.
And just to come back on that, I would say I've experienced that firsthand. Like I've been to one of your dentists a few times. Every time I go, the first question that I get asked is not what are you doing, what are we doing, how does that work? It's how's your daughter?
Brilliant. Yeah.
And then it's they ask to see pictures of my daughter, and suddenly that just breaks down everything. I was nervous. I didn't go to a dentist for I think 10 years. Should have done, didn't, hold my hands up. That's my mistake. I was quite nervous about going back. I did. And now every time I go in, suddenly that how's your daughter just switches every feeling in you. You're kind of stood there, you're nervous, you're anxious, oh, I'm getting fill-in, I'm getting implants, I'm getting braces, I'm getting this. That how's your daughter, how's your dog, changes everything, and it just really comforts you.
It's
And
really nice to hear, actually, because I've not asked you actually
no,
any sort of feedback about it. But the fact that somebody's been there and experienced that, I think that the key for it though is consistency. So if your next door neighbor also goes, have they had the same experience? And I think I've always wanted to make them less dentally. So the next sort of phase of things is we're probably going to renovate some of the practices a little bit, update them a bit in terms of the decor. We invest a lot in tech. I love tech, I love gadgets, and I love dentists that love all the tech, and we'll get that. So we're ahead of the game with everybody, I feel, for any of the tech. But even little things like the smell, so it's so important. But if you go to, well, smell invokes so many memories anyway, but the traditional dental smell, you can probably smell it. You think about it right now, and it was this sort of eugenol sort of clove like smell, which initially it just invokes so many bad memories often, whereas actually if it smells nice, if the first touch point that you have within the practice is a lovely reception desk, but the biggest thing is the people, so are you getting a warm and happy smile as soon as you're walking in? And exactly what you said, do they remember things, and are they, talking to you as a person? The thing I hate sometimes with maybe GP practices and things is nobody looks up at you, go have a seat. That's it. That's your experience. You're already, you're not there normally for the best of situations in GP practices. Something's wrong and you're nervous, but you shouldn't be made to feel like that.
yeah, So I'm a big fan of Molly's Game. I don't know if you've ever seen that film. It's woman Molly Bloom. She did a poker for all of the top celebrities, and one of the things she asked her mum was, "How do I make them want to be in my room? Because they've got more money than me, they've got more status than me, they're a lot more powerful than me. So how do I get them to want to spend time with me?" And the response was, I think it's actually, is it Maya Angelou, or I can't remember her name. I'll come back on that. But she quoted, "It's not what people see, it's how you make people feel."
Yeah.
People don't remember what you tell them. They don't remember what they see. It's how you make them feel. So everything she then does is all experience, and again, we do that here. Like it's people's experiences that they will then remember and they will go away with. So as you say, it's hitting the smell, touch, sight, feel, like all of the different senses,
Yeah.
sound, and that's what works. And as you say, I think you've got that. Funnily enough, I was at the dentist yesterday, and in one of your waiting rooms, the smell, it was really nice. I couldn't work out whether it was another patient, if it was the room, but I was kind of sat there like, wow, this is really nice in here. So yeah,
but
great.
Even sitting in the chair, I mean, we have sort of TVs on the ceilings and the walls, and some of it is just distraction. Whatever channels up there, you get to choose what you want to watch, and it's just putting you into a bit of a different place. It's just changing that concept.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
Suddenly, it's not just well aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's all of these other things. So yeah, I'd say you've nailed that. Certainly with the one I've been to.
Thank you.
And then, so pushing that to, do you try and replicate that in every other practice?
We do, but we're not there yet. Some of the practices we've not had for that long, and I guess that first part is having the right team, and having that culture starting to sort of be embedded and develop. So it takes a few years, to get there. Again, I think with the first practice, it took us a long time just because we were too scared. We were too scared to break the norm. We had lots of dentists there that even the old owners used to work there, and all the previous dentists there, and they were all towards the end of their careers. So they did things a certain way. They just wanted to carry on doing things the same way. That was their comfort zone. Whereas there was me, who I bought this really big, expensive piece of machinery before I'd even bought the practice, ready to go into the practice as soon as I was in there. And it was a completely different sort of a culture shift. And it took me probably a good part of 3, 4, maybe even 5 years there to say, actually put my foot down and say, well, actually, no, this is what I want to do. This is my vision. This is what I want to do, and be strong enough to sort of do it. There were times I'd go into the practice and it didn't feel like my place. I'd walk in and there was this bit of, I don't know, discomfort. It felt like there was them and me, at times, just because, and I allowed that to happen because I went around the flow of whatever I wanted to do, and I was trying to keep people happy and, keep the existing status quo. The business had been there for so many years. Why don't you just keep it the same? It's doing fine. I didn't want to just do fine. I wanted to do better than fine. It took me a while to get the balls to be able to do it. And I think now in the newer places, we're a lot quicker with that. Part of it is just having a happy team. So we've got a swear jar. You can't say staff. You have to say team.
Yeah.
Staff is a big wooden stick that you walk around with, and has its own connotations. Whereas it's always team. And we have sort of initiatives throughout the year. So we've got something called the Khana Cup. So the area manager will rock up at the start of the year with a Harry Potter sorting hat, put the practice team members into different houses, and then you just get points for positivity. So this isn't KPI driven, and we really look at our general KPIs a lot, but this is, Google reviews. Have you got genuine Google reviews that people have had a lovely experience? Have you helped each other out? So if was a dentist running late at the end of the day, and another nurse was, dentist runs late, the nurse runs even later because they're sorting out the surgery afterwards. Have you helped out your team member in that situation? Has a patient gone through a really bad time and you've just gone above and beyond to go and help that? And you get points for this, and then at the end of every quarter, will rock up with a prize wheel, and they'll get, they might get a little lunch or bowling or, these sort of things. And then at the end of a year, we have the kind of awards where the winning house or winning team gets, get a nice celebration. They get a bit of a bigger sort of prize. But we wanted it based purely on positivity, because that's what we're shouting about. So why should we not do something to do that? And actually that does transpire into money at the end of the day, profit, because actually when you go into that practice, when you know the team are feeling happy, you feel it yourself. Or if you walked into somewhere and you know that they've just had an argument, you feel that tension, don't you?
Yeah.
So, for us, it's getting the team on board with that. But again, it's a really new concept in dentistry. When we take over a practice and suddenly we're saying we're going to do all this flowery stuff, that what the hell, we just want to look after teeth. That's it. That's all we want to do. So it takes a while for people to understand the value in that. And actually the time you realize it is when, later down the line, you've just got this buzz around the place where everybody's likes each other and, everybody's having fun with one another and just that fun vibe, and again, it's a stressful day, it's a long day, it's a stressful day. They work bloody hard. So just having those moments of positivity, fun, I think it really helps.
So it sounds like almost everything you're doing is building around the culture and building a nice place. As you've mentioned, you spend a long time at work. You might as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
When you're recruiting, then is that harder to recruit for, or is it easier to recruit for?
I think what was hard was, firstly, I think the recruitment side, you don't necessarily know how a person is from maybe a 1 hour conversation with them over Zoom or Teams or another hour in person. Like 2 hours, you're never going to get to know a lot about somebody, So part of that recruitment is actually how are they with the team? How are they with, their on bad days? How are they in those scenarios? And you'll only know when they join. So I do think, you just have to have that. But then you need regular reviews, weekly, 2 weekly, 3 weekly, monthly, 3 monthly, like these chats with that person. So you can see where they're going, what's happening. And that's when you truly get to know their mindset about things. So is it, everybody has off days, right? But is it a regular thing where you just can't get the positivity out of yourself? Is there ways that we can help that? We had a wellness day at one of our practices where we were really lucky. One of my dentist, her sister is really big in that field. And she came and did a talk to the team. But, things like that help, and that's the same thing with the team member. You don't really know from necessarily the few questions that you're asking, you probably know quite quickly when somebody's not on board with that, you know. But normally, when I'm having this discussion with somebody I'm interviewing, for example, they love it because they haven't really experienced that. If you know, and if I'm having a chat with you and saying we're all about positivity, there's not much you can dislike about that element of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, it's the feeling kind of passes on.
Yeah.
It's contagious. If we're talking about, I guess, probably your first practice or across the board,
Yeah.
what would you say has been your biggest mistake?
Probably what we discussed. It's not having a true purpose. The first practice was just trying to do dentistry around everybody else, not having a direction where I wanted the team to go. It was just doing the day to day. I think that part, and then not being, I guess, strong enough to be able to, and confident enough at that point to deliver that to the team. I think definitely that's our biggest failure. And it took so long. When I look back at it, and I feel like I think we've done quite a lot in a relatively short space of time. But actually, that probably could have been halved if we had just did that quicker. But then on the flip side, it's probably made us what we are now. Going through that experience and going through that sort of difficulty. It's probably made us more of what we are now. So two sides to it.
Yeah, exactly that. So you mentioned like the previous owners continue working there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I say a lot is quite a tough thing to do because they owned it. They had it all in their way. So do you think that had a big impact on you not changing things because they were still there?
I think to an extent, and also probably the reasoning why we bought it. There was no real reason. It was there's two of us that are dentists. We might as well go and own a practice. Whereas actually, if we thought about it beforehand, and we wanted to develop something, we wanted to have this bit of a legacy afterwards. We wanted to have something that's ours, and we can do certain things in certain ways which we couldn't when you're not the owner. I think if we had all of those, concepts beforehand, I think it would have made life a bit easier. I think having the existing people there, it really helped us for the first 6 months to a year because we had no idea how a dental practice works. Literally, there is just no course. There was nothing to tell you what to expect, how to look at, the cash flow in a business, how to look at return on investment, anything. Even that part, actually, we probably only learned about that later on. There's so many tick boxes, in dentistry as well. There's a CQC that you have to, they're all there to protect, patients and everything else. But there's a lot of paperwork to do, and on a daily basis. So we didn't know about any of that. So we only learned that whilst we were on the job, and again they help with that whole aspect of it. I think the difficult part with existing owners is they love the place. They would have been there for their entire lifetime. They've probably seen it grow from something very small to something really really cool. Whenever the time comes that we look to sell, we've done it a certain way. You should do it that same way. But so there's always that disparity, I think, between people. Not always, but I haven't really come across it where that there might not be a difference of opinion in that side of things. Unless that person stays on and really believes in that culture and those values and is willing to sort of accept it.
So if we flip that, then we've kind of gone the toughest. What's been the best decision that you've made, or your biggest success?
I think the best decision we made was to focus on the business side of things. So go away from the clinical side and just focus pure on the business. I think success wise, again, like I said, that I need growth. I need that development side of it. So I think acquiring practices at one stage was my sort of benchmark, and transitioning them and making them into a Khana Health Group practice. But I think that probably the biggest thing for me was starting the academy. I've always wanted to do that. So it's we had this facility across the road from one of the practices, and we used to have lecturers come and upskill our team, our dentists, and things individually within the practices. But again, I always felt a bit of a fraud when I was having interviews and things and saying, well, I want to develop you, I want you to get better, from the day my main, and still say it now, my main role is you might be with us for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, your lifetime. But the day you join us to the day you leave, I want you to have improved. Full stop. That's, and whatever role, dentist, nurse, practice manager, anything. But I felt we weren't truly delivering that. So setting up this academy, which was a postgraduate diploma, it was a lot harder than I envisioned. There's a lot of work to actually become accredited to be able to give diploma out. And then the second part was getting the best speakers in the country in to Milton Keynes, where normally is London or Manchester and all these other places. But actually, come to Milton Keynes. You haven't heard about us, but trust in me because I'm really believe in this. And they had to trust in us to be able to come and deliver these sort of lectures and things. I still feel like a fraud because we do it for dentists, but we don't do it for the wider team enough. So therapists, hygienists, practice managers, and everybody else, which is what we're going to do. So that's my next sort of big passion and plan is to have it there and available. We've got the facility, we just need to use it and find ways where it will interest other members of the dental team and develop that side of it. So I think day one of that first day at the academy, when I was there introducing ourselves to the delegates that we got signed up, I think that was, it felt good.
That was your big moment.
I think so. Yeah.
You also mentioned like previous practice owners helping you with cash flow and numbers and stuff like that. How important is knowing the numbers?
Essential. It is essential, So you can have this whole side of it where you're focused on growth, but if you have a leaky bucket, then you're never actually going to grow the most important thing, which is the profit part. So turnover is fully vanity. It fully is. And the people that lead with the turnover figure, I always in the back of my mind think, well, what is the profit? If you want to lead with something, you got to lead with the profit factor. And I think knowing the numbers, but also knowing it in a timely manner. So actually, so many people, again, in the dental world, I don't know, in the wider business world, that they're looking at the numbers as looking at your end of year accounts, which you've normally got a few months after the end of year, and it's all very retrospective. So you've not been able to make any decisions on the go. And actually, you've lost this massive chunk of time where things could have really been going downhill and you don't know about it. So I think that the management accounts, and just whether it's management accounts, whatever you're doing, but if you're looking at the key figures from the business on a monthly basis, it's not all doom and gloom with these things. If something's going really well, why is it going well? And then what can I do more of to make that get better? But the biggest thing is if something's not going very well, you pick it out early doors, you figure out why. And yes, it might make a month or two to make changes to impact that, but at least it's a month or two and not a year or two.
Yeah, because as you just mentioned, sometimes it's even 18 months down the line and you're trying to make a change 18 months late.
Yeah.
Which could almost be, it's too late, that's game over.
Yeah. I think also with that, David, it's the story. So you can sit there, look at a bunch of numbers, but if you don't know the story behind them, then it's useless. So every line item on that, so the management accounts, you just need to know the story behind it. And whoever's presenting it to you, or if you're having your managers go through even KPIs or certain figures, we'll often get, oh, okay, this has gone up or this has gone down, but why? I think that's the key. The big thing is why.
It's absolutely fine if it's going up. Costs are going up. That's great. Is that bringing in more sales? Then fine, perfect. It's working. If the costs are just going up and there's no reason for it, that's when you've got to do the digging. And that's when you've got to know them numbers quickly to be able to spot that.
Yes. Yeah.
If you could go right back to the beginning, would you do it all again?
100%. Yeah. Without a doubt. Would I do things differently? Probably. I think there's this, you're torn, aren't you? Because actually whatever's happened in the past has probably shaped how you are now, and that's a key thing. And you have to go through difficult times or these sort of things to shape however you are now. But in the same way, I always do wonder, well, what if we did things a bit differently then? Or, what would the end sort of result look like now, or the current result, not the end result, what would that look like now? So yeah, I would do it again. Yeah, in a heartbeat.
2 questions. One, we did touch on it earlier, but if you've got one thing you're leaving behind, what is your legacy?
Legacy, the genuine answer is I want to feel like I've changed dentistry. It's a massive, massive statement, but actually when I'm there in a box at the end of life and we've done everything, are we remembered in a certain way that we've changed something about dentistry? I'd love to do that. Now it feels like we're so insignificant in the grand scheme of things at the moment, but I'd love to feel like I made an impact, and Sreena is the same. We both feel like we want to feel like we've made an impact into the world of dentistry, maybe business overall. I think if I look back at us at 10 years ago, I wouldn't be expecting to be on a podcast, right now, and the life that we're sort of having as a result of that is amazing, But I think I want to feel like I made a difference. I think it's the ultimate legacy. Want the children to be proud of what mummy and daddy have created, and maybe want to create. It doesn't have to be within dentistry, but create something themselves. If that's the way they're sort of inclined. But yeah, that positive, I don't know, that positive memory of whatever we've created.
Excuse me for being naive on this one, but would you want your kids to go into dentistry? Because as far as I'm aware, and some of the dentists I know, it tends to be they've gone into it because their parents have kind of pushed them into it, or to given them a nudge as what happens. Would you want your kids to go into dentistry?
I think if you asked me before I stopped clinical work, probably the answer would have been yes. Just because, again, it's stability in terms of a profession. And there's lots of different avenues you can take. So yes, business ownership is one of them, but actually you can specialize in so many different things, and you can, you can work in hospital, you can do lots of different aspects of the career. I think when you ask me now, I just want them to be happy. I want them to be secure. I don't want them to have to worry about when the next paycheck's coming and these sort of things, because I feel like the stress factor in lots of these things can change your life, going forward as well. But I want them to be happy, and my children, the youngest is 2, so don't she's just an animal, so I don't really know what she's going to do at this point. But she's very tenacious, very clever. But the older 2 are very different, and I can see the entrepreneurial part of the eldest one, but I can see the stability part in our youngest boy. And I feel like, they want to actually, they want to own an ice cream shop together. I asked them what they want to do. They want to own it. I said, you've got to be sugar free, mate. But they want, they already want to have this business. And actually, Sreena met somebody who makes their own ice cream. They went to go and see it was so nice that he gave up his time to show them how ice cream is made and all these sort of things. So they wanted, so fine, do it and be happy, but think about it as well, like do things in the right way. I think the one thing maybe we can help them with is create the culture, whatever it is within the business. Think about, plan things out, and then deliver it. But sometimes we're so focused on the why, we forget to enjoy the how. What actually happened and transpired, and that's the fun in life, isn't it? Is that journey, as well as just the startup and the finish of it. It's the journey. You got to enjoy the journey, otherwise it's not fun.
Yeah, I think
Right.
because then his journey's finished. What does he do then? That's his end goal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Olympians have that problem when they achieve gold. They get depressed because it's the journey to get there. They've done it for probably 20 years, since they were like tiny little kids.
Yeah.
And then once they've achieved it, it's like, what's the meaning of life now? What do we do?
You hear it all the time. Even lottery winners and things. There's you've won this. Well, now what's life? Or people that have sold. And sold. They've got loads of money for selling and doing whatever they did, but they're not happy. It's a whole debate about money and happiness, isn't there? And whatever, you got to find whatever it is that's going to make you happy.
So on that then,
led into it. If you probably know what to answer.
Yeah, I feel like you've just lined that one up for me. Would you sell? How would you do it? When would you do it?
Yeah, so I think we would. In terms of when, it's when I feel like I'm not having fun anymore, is the honest answer. So we've grown. We're quite a big, group in the sort of dental world of things. Although it's a small sort of group structure. But some of it is, well, I don't want to lose control. So having, losing shares and equity out of the business and then not necessarily having control, I feel like at this moment in time, I'm not ready for that. Whereas we're getting too big sometimes for some of the high street banks to be able to lend to us, to further acquire or refinance and these sort of things. So I think ultimately we always need to have our finger on the pulse, and I always have the finger on the pulse because I want to know what we're valued at. What's our actually equity in the business itself. But we're still enjoying it, and we're still developing, and we're still. I feel like I've said all these things that how wonderful the practices are, but still feel like we're only maybe, I don't know, 60% there. We've got past the 50%. We're at 60% there, but there's a still big chunk of things that I want to make a difference with, and even with our existing practices, just improve. I don't feel I'm ready. Is the answer? Would we ever? Yes, yeah, I think so, because you have to have one eye on that at some point, and whether it's because we're just not enjoying it anymore, or it's the right time financially, or whatever it is. I think we will have to look at it at some point, but at the moment, no.
Fair enough. Something I talk about quite a lot is AI. AI is having a big impact on almost every industry.
Yeah.
I guess, what is it doing to you? Is it affecting you? How are you using AI, or are you kind of not seeing it?
So I'm one of those people where there's something new. I want to find a way that it fits into us, So just generally, when any sort of new technology, I'm probably not a pioneer. I don't think somebody else pioneering it and then being an early adopter. But with AI in dentistry, actually, so there's a software at the moment where let's say you have an X-ray, it will show up and highlight things on an X-ray so that dentists don't miss it, or they can highlight it to a patient, they can show it to a patient, these sort of things. I think it was ingenious, something like that, because the biggest thing AI helps with is human error. It's scary, but the biggest thing it helps with is human error. So if you can mitigate some of that, as long as it doesn't, and the thing that I've always questioned in my background, I don't want it to dumb down our dentists, our team, these sort of things. It has to be an adjunct. It can't be used instead of.
Yeah.
But actually, I've just pushed the button on that software in our practice. One of our core values, innovation. We've got to be true to it, and so we're going to trial it at one practice, having this tool to sort of help with the reading of X-rays and things, and see how it works, and see how easy it is to use, and then we'll implement that across the group. So there is. Yeah.
So we have similar sort of things here, but my biggest problem with that is what you're doing is you're giving them the tool, you're aiding them so that they don't miss anything. However, I guess the argument to that is new dentists coming through won't pick up on them things because they'll rely on the AI to do it for them.
Yeah.
Which means that almost that training bit, that they won't see that they need to know that, because why would they need to know it? Because the AI is doing it.
Yeah.
So do you think that will affect kind of the teachings and people in future?
It is the thing I worry about. But I think I worry about that not just within dentistry. I just, even, Chat GPT with answering questions. And I think my 9-year-old started mentioning to me, his friend had mentioned, using Chat GPT for something. I was like, whoa, people want to see what you have to offer. And same thing with dentistry. I think there has to be an element where there's a process where, you're using it as a tool, but it's still on you, and you still need to diagnose. And there's also, X-rays are not the only way that you diagnose. You have to look at things, you have to investigate it, you have to have that clinical inspection as well. So use it to highlight things, but then actually look at it yourself. You go, use your eyes, use the light. A lot of them have loops and things that magnify things. Use all of that as well as this as a tool, so it cross references. I think at this stage, until 100% foolproof, you can't put all your trust and all your eggs into it. But it's certainly, adopt it and look at these things. And what's the worst that can happen? It could highlight, something that might not be there, but then you're checking it, and it's the case, and you're not treating based on that. So definitely a worry, that you can become dependent on these things. But I think you need to have these at the moment, the parallels to make sure you're making the right call.
Yeah. So at the end, we tend to do these Diary of a CEO questions. I don't know if you heard his podcast, Stephen Bartlett.
Yes, yeah.
Basically, we pick one each randomly and we answer it.
Okay, right.
So
do I read one to you, or you read?
So you
or
pick
I read
one,
my own one.
If you pick this one for yourself,
okay,
and then you answer it, and then I'll pick one and I'll answer that one.
Sure. Right. If you could go back in time and change one specific moment in your life, what would that be, and why? Change one specific moment. That's a really tricky one. I think, I don't know whether it's one moment as such. I think one thing that I've failed with that haunts me is I created an app when I was an associate dentist. Like I said, this itch, I created an app and it was called the Dental Professor. And again, the concept was sort of similar to what we have now, where it was like, videos of how to do certain procedures and these sort of things. And I didn't invest enough time, energy, and everything into it. I didn't have money to invest into it at that point, to go into any of it. So I feel like I flopped with that. And actually afterwards, the whole dental education side of things really took off. So it was sort of at that right time, but it was just the wrong thing that I didn't invest enough time and energy into. So I think going back in time with hindsight, maybe actually really giving that a good go and learning more about the things and doing that. But at the same point, I think you learn from failure as well, so I think it happened, and it probably showed me that if I'm half-assed with something, it's not going to work, so yeah, that's probably it, David.
Okay, brilliant. And I'm going to go with,
you got a humdinger.
Yeah. When it all gets too dark, what helps you find the light? That's a tough one. I think I would say when it comes to business, it's my business partner. I've had some tough times. I've kind of felt burnout. I remember sitting in my car. I drove, left work, got in my car, drove home, sat on my drive, looked at the clock for some reason. 45 minutes later,
wow,
I went into the house. And she kind of said, like, my wife said, what were you doing? Like, what took you so long? What's going on? I said, I don't actually know what's just happened. I've just lost 45 minutes, just blanked out. I genuinely have no recollection of what happened. And basically, I had a client that was quite demanding. They wanted stuff there and then. The big turning point for me was they phoned me up on Christmas Eve saying they need a report, they need it today. Wow. And I have to do it. And I said, that's not how we work. Unfortunately, you need someone in-house to do that sort of thing if that's how you want to work.
Yeah.
But I didn't say that. Catherine, my business partner, did. And she was the one that said, we don't need a client like that. Okay, they were probably paying 25% of our cash flow at the time. So they were a big client, a big part. And she said, look, we'll get rid of them. We'll get through it. We'll deal with it.
Yeah.
So it was her almost saying, you're not right. We're fixing it. And she stepped in and done it. So, and then I guess kind of at home life, like my partner does that as well. She'll say, you're not here. You're not present.
Yes.
Yeah. What are we doing? So I guess that's probably been my toughest times and the times that I've been pulled out of it. So I can't say that I've done that myself. I've been dragged out, and I've kind of had to hold my hands up and say, like I didn't realize it. Or I think the problem is when it happens to us, we can kind of brush it off. When you see it happening to someone else, you can see it.
Yes.
Because I think we've probably done the opposite to each other. And when she's been in low points, I've kind of said, look, you're not right at the moment. What's up?
Yeah.
Like, let's talk. And going back to your point right at the beginning, like talking is the key point, communication and coming through it.
I think it's so important, whether you have a partner, business partner, or, a partner at home, but having somebody having it could be a friend, it could be even a group of peers.
Business coach.
Yeah, business coach. Somebody that can, but close enough to you to understand that probably you're comfortable with talking to, but also that can spot certain changes with you. I think having that, because sometimes you're so involved in that rat race, you don't see it yourself until it's too late normally, and you're tired or you're exhausted or you can't wake up, or all these signs of depression, that happen, and it happens probably slowly and suddenly hits you. I think having that support and somebody's support. I have the same with Sreena, and we're the same with one another, as well as business coach and everybody else. But there will always be one of us that'll pull the other one out, or figure out what they need. They might need a bit of a break, it might just need a bit of time out. It might be just go and drive in the car for a bit, and because you've got life and children and everything going on all at the same time. So yeah, I fully agree with you. And it's the constant struggle of an entrepreneur, is this you're torn between growth and everything else, and actually I'm the same, with the kids. Sometimes I'm there and I'm not present, and I automatically I'm picking up the phone and I'm responding to emails. They're trying to talk to me about what's happening in the day, and only after they're sort of gone, I was like, actually, I didn't listen to enough of that at all, so I try to, and I'm rubbish at it actually, and it's one thing I'd really need to improve. But I'm trying to just put the phone down, put it, take the watch off, because that pings me every time I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and if I'm present with them, 10 minutes, half an hour of fully being present is better than 2 hours of not really being present but being around.
Yeah.
So just give them that quality time, talk to them, have that conversation, because they grow up so quickly.
Exactly. That's something I've kind of taken on board quite a lot. So my daughter, she's 2 as well. She said to me the other day, actually it was about a month ago now, but she said, "Daddy, put down the phone."
Yeah.
The fact that she said that,
yeah,
hit home hard.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, the fact that you recognize I'm on the phone, I'm ignoring you because I'm on the phone. I wasn't doing anything exciting. It was, I think it was like emails or something like that I didn't need to be doing.
Yeah.
It was outside of working hours. I'm sure the clients weren't expecting it. So why am I doing it when I should be spending time with her? And it's something I've tried to do. So one of the things I try and do now is almost leave my phone in a different room.
Yeah.
And then I also get fear that, oh my God, I've lost my phone. What's going on?
Yeah,
but
the anxiety.
It helps, because then if I can't just grab it next to me and look at it, I've got to get up, and I'm lazy enough that I won't get up to go and look at it. So yeah,
it's a good tip.
It's a tough one.
It's a good tip, But you think about it, when you've done a long journey driving somewhere, everything hasn't collapsed in that 1 hour you might have been driving somewhere. Everything still survived. You didn't look at your phone. You haven't had to respond to certain things in the email. You might be calling, but let's say you didn't. Everything still survives.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
It all still functions.
Yeah,
nothing's that urgent, and if it is, you'd have had a phone call.
Yeah.
So I guess, is there any questions you expected me to ask that I didn't?
Not at all. I think you're brilliant, and actually the facilities are brilliant. Everything here is it's a really nice, just a nice environment. I'm really, really honored actually to be on the podcast, and these chairs are just amazing.
Yes, yeah, and well done for not falling asleep.
I just can't touch the floor. I feel like a little bit of it, I've recognized my height here, swinging around. But yeah, no, you've been absolutely brilliant, and I'm so happy to have been on the podcast, and I hope the listeners gain something from me babbling on for this period of time, and happy to reach out to me if there are any questions on the back of it, or anything I can help with, advise with. I'm always happy to.
So on that, what's the easiest way to reach out to you?
Probably Instagram or Facebook. Just find Kaival Patel, or Khana Health Group website, and you can ping me an email on there. It's probably the easiest way to get hold of me. Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for coming in, and we'll close it there.
Thanks, David.